Hi friends, Jen here with Serenity Hills Farmstead. Today I want to talk about rose. And rose in itself, I mean, beautiful aromatic plant. I couldn't quite fit the camera in exactly the right place to be able to see me and the roses, but I'm sitting kind of amongst one of my rose bushes here. We've got kind of a half row here of mini roses, and I love this variety. They don't get super huge, but they're beautiful. And I've got kind of a late crop going because we've got very unseasonably warm temperatures. I'm a little warm here in my very light sweater here, but I'm a little warm with it because I think today with the sun, it kind of feels like it's in the upper 70s today, which is just very not normal for almost mid-October here in Illinois. Well, what I wanted to share with you today about roses, I wanted to hurry up and get this because with this weird temperature, we've got these beautiful roses that's just still are in great condition. I'm actually going to do another harvest today of them while I'm here. And we also have wild rose hips that are ready. And they shouldn't be ready for a while yet, but it's cold at night and it's warm during the day, and nature is doing some wonky things this year. So we're just going to go with it, and we're going to harvest what we have to harvest. And while I am doing one of our last harvests of the year, I wanted to bring you along. You can look at our very overgrown garden and herb beds here, but I wanted to share about some of these amazing properties with rose. It's a very simple herb. It's one of those herbs that doesn't do tons and tons, but what it does do, it does very well, and it's a great herb to add to your apothecary shelf. So rose in itself is a very, I would say, emotionally soothing herb. This is an herb that is said to be wonderfully soothing and comforting in dealing with heartache. It also has some vitamin C in it. I've seen some studies about its antidepressant properties. So a mild antidepressant for sure, but a very, very tasty herb. So how I use these is I go ahead and I harvest them, and then I will just kind of break them apart and I'll stick them on our dryer. So this year we are kind of in between in between properties, trying to get everything set to move out here and still doing some things at our house while we're waiting for it to sell. So because of that, we have our dining room as our herb drying room. And I've got a whole bunch of different like hanging drying things for the herbs that are smaller crops, because we only have, let's see, 8 rose bushes, which does provide a lot of rose. And we also have our industrial dehydrators, and then we've got hanging racks for hanging herbs, and then we've got our fans and all of that going on them at all times. So with this one, as long as you kind of break it apart, because you don't want that center part, which is a little bit denser, you don't want that to hold onto moisture or end up molding. That would be bad. It would ruin your whole crop. So you just kind of I just kind of break them apart and I stick them on our drying trays, and there they sit on the fans until they are completely dry, which maybe takes 36 hours. It does not take long at all if they are spread apart like that. Now rose hips, on the other hand, they take longer because they're more of a berry. They are going to go into the dehydrator. And the reason we do that is because there's so much more water content inside of it, just like any really dense herb. You don't want those to sit out and air dry because you have a much higher risk of that molding or not completely drying, and then you go to put it into storage, bad things happen. And then again, you lose your entire crop. So that's rose. I'm gonna put this one down for now because I don't like to waste anything. So we're gonna put it right here, and we'll come back for you later. And we're gonna go for a little bit of a walk, and I'm gonna show you wild rose hips, and we're gonna talk about that. So I have walked down one of our trails here and found a ton of rose hips that are ready. They are literally everywhere. And if you hear any big stuff, I'm pretty sure there is a pretty big deer back in here somewhere walking around. My husband will be thrilled to hear about. So I'm going to show you the difference between two. That's why I stopped at this spot specifically, was because I wanted to show you this little stem right here that's sticking in the way. We're just going to ignore that. But I wanted to show you two plants that can look very, very similar, but I want to show you the difference with how to identify them if you're looking for wild rose hips. So typically when you are getting wild rose hips, you are going to be looking after you've had a good freeze or at least a frost. And the reason for that is because this plant is starting to go dormant. This is how it goes to seed and how it gets kind of ripens up and gets really potent. So, but also, let me get a piece here without stabbing myself. So this is a really small one. But this is wild rose. And if you see, there's thorns. There's definitely thorns on these guys. This is a pretty small, this is a piece of an end. Now, you can identify wild rose when it's in bloom. They are lighter pink little roses. They're about that big or so. At least here they are. Here we're in zone, actually, what are we now? 6A? I think we're in zone 6A now. We are in Northwest Illinois. They just changed our zone. So that's about where we're at. And I like to keep an eye out for these thorny, like viney looking things. They don't sit in a bush the way a rose bush would. And they don't vine. They just kind of send out these shoots, kind of like the way raspberries would. And you can see here, they're thorny. They mean business here. So I just kind of keep an eye, keep a mental note of where I'm seeing them. They really like the edges of paths. They really like my herb beds too, so they'll pop up wherever I let them. But you can use the roses, just like what we already talked about with the intentionally planted roses that we have. You can use the wild rose also. And then you can get these hips. So let's talk about this plant over here. This one here is holly. Do you see the difference here? It can be pretty easy for someone that is new to foraging to misidentify this. But it's a very important thing because holly is toxic. You don't want to ingest this. The animals don't even mess with it. The birds don't eat the berries. Not here anyway. So there it is. Bright red, very round. The leaves are way bigger. The leaf pattern is different. No thorns, okay? Get rid of that. This one, lots of thorns, different leaf pattern. The leaves, you can see, are kind of serrated. Big difference. And the way the berries are, they're kind of oblong. And they don't cluster together. They're kind of individually on their own stem, okay? Those are the rose hips. So, like I was saying, when you harvest these, you carefully use some good gloves. I actually got a pair of leather palmed gloves that I actually really like for harvesting. So I just squished one on accident. So they're easy to squish, so try not to. But I just kind of gently pull off, okay, and that's it. And that's what you stick in your dehydrator. So all of the good properties that are in rose are also in the hips, but also rose hips is packed with vitamin C, like 5 times more than citrus. Rose hips is just filled with it. It also has anti-inflammatory, astringent, and antibacterial properties. So this is another one to really keep on your shelf for the coming change in season. I really like it personally with Tulsi. I make a specific tea that we sell at market called Tulsi Rose, and it is a certain amount of rose hips and rose and Tulsi, and then which is holy basil, and I also put milky oats in that. And that combination is so nourishing and it just feels good when you drink it. Have you ever had a cup of tea where you're like, oh, that's better? That is how I feel about Tulsi Rose. Primarily because of the Tulsi, I think, but also the rose is just, it does so many good things for you. The Tulsi has adaptogenic properties, so that's basically any kind of change your body deems a stressor. So if there's a weather change, if you have a job change, if you've moved, even if it's all good and exciting things, it's still a change, which your body identifies as a stressor. Even if it's not negative. Even if it's exciting stress, it's still stress, and any kind of change can weaken your immune system. It can weaken and slow your lymphatic system and your GI tract, and it can basically make the systems that already are predisposed to issues, like for me, asthma. If I'm stressed, my asthma flares. Super fun times. So that can happen. So when you are going through a change, having herbs in your system that are really supportive, have good amounts of vitamin C, like your rose hips here, and have strong adaptogenic properties to help your body be able to handle stress. Really, really important. The other thing that I like to add to it is the milky oats. Milky oats is a phenomenal mineralizer. Now, the best way to grow milky oats, we grew 75 feet of milky oats this year, and it's incredible. I have so much milky oats. We're making it in tincture form, which you do when it's still in that milky stage, which I can go on and on about, but we will do a separate video on milky oats because it is that phenomenal. It deserves its own video. But we make tinctures when it's still in its milk stage, and then we can harvest it and we can dehydrate it when it's in its milk stage, and we can use it in teas, and then you can harvest the oat grass and you can use that as a mineralizing herb. So many good things for it, but it's just the mineralizing properties of it is so nourishing to your nervous system. And you know, minerals, so good for your body, so necessary for your body for basic function, things like your heart beating and taking a breath and digestion. Minerals are essential. So when you're stressed out, you get mineral depletion. So taking an herb that is a mineralizer is really good addition. So that is what I wanted to share with you today about rose and rose hips. Now, I'm going to go ahead and harvest all of these, and I have a whole batch in here. I should go get my gloves first. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll see you guys in the next one.